Just days ago, French and British officials were publicly arguing for more NATO missile strikes. There was even talk of a rift between the major coalition allies. Now, US President Barack Obama, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and French President Nicolas Sarkozy have released a joint opinion piece saying NATO remains united and will continue operations until Gaddafi steps down. Now, the UN resolution in March authorized that countries could take all necessary measures to protect civilians in Libya, including by imposing a no-fly zone. Since then, however, leaders have debated what else the resolution does or doesn't allow. Cameron has argued the resolution allows the coalition to arm rebels in Libya. In his latest article, the three heads of state also argue they are designed to ensure, quote, pressure on the regime builds. They add it is unthinkable that someone who has tried to massacre his own people can play a part in their future government. The piece says plainly, Gaddafi must go, and go for good. Well, for more on this, we're joined by Steve Clemons. He's a senior fellow at the New America Foundation, a think tank here in Washington. Steve, once again, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So the UN Security Council 1973 was undoubtedly the starting point for the intervention, but judging by this opinion piece, it seems as if it's going to be thrown out the window now as these leaders try to chart a course for the end game here.
Well, I don't know if it's an end game or trying to convince their own constituencies that what they've done is worth continuing to do. That when Barack Obama came out and said that he hoped that this would be a matter of days and not weeks, now we're clearly into weeks, and he might say, well, we hope it's not months. You can imagine it becoming months, and you say, we hope this isn't years. So I think what they're doing is writing an op-ed piece, where it's war by op-ed now to some degree, and trying to convince their constituencies that this international resolve in this fight that hasn't gone as well as they hoped it might is still worth doing.
Is it a clear indication that they are strongly considering ground troops?
I think it is a doubling down, and we don't know where they're going. I can't say that the president who said so firmly that he would never deploy U.S. troops in a ground force, but we saw lots of U.S. airplanes making strikes today. Now, they did it under the guise of NATO, but these are the same planes that were bombing NATO sites before the NATO management came into the picture. So one wonders, they've basically decided, particularly with that line that you just read, that Gaddafi must go and for good, is essentially committing themselves to total regime change. And anything less than that makes this alliance of Britain, France, and the United States look impotent. And I think that to a certain degree it does raise the question of how far they're going to go, and we just don't know where that is. But it's clearly not a status quo situation. I think they are signaling that they're going to be in this for the long run and probably deploy everything they have. We've decided to co-opt and own this war in Libya.
5 weeks ago, you were seated across from me in Doha, and you said that a no-fly zone, imposing the no-fly zone, would be a bad idea. Do you still believe that?
Absolutely. I understand very much the emotion that led President Obama a few weeks ago Tuesday to change on a dime and decide that something needed to be done. But my warning, as I shared with you at that time, is that we had to be very careful of owning this war, changing the camera screens to this being about us, and co-opting something that we couldn't get out of, that we would again be dragged into something with a slippery slope, lots of unintended consequences, taking us in directions that we didn't expect. I think that's where Muammar Gaddafi is. He's proven to be a very agile and complicated foe. And I think that United States and France, particularly Nicolas Sarkozy, who's been the lead and front person on a lot of this, now owns this. And I think that this can have as negative repercussions on the potential for an Arab Spring as basically coming in and trying to intervene and help people in need who are trying to fight for something different.
It's going to offset the benefits of an Arab Spring?
I think so, in the sense that if you basically send a signal, you create an appetite among opposition groups that if they can just get the politics right, if they can just trigger enough that they can get forces from the outside to come in and help, then you end up finding yourself set up time after time after time to deal with opposition groups that may not have the quality of composition of what we've seen in Tunisia and Egypt. I think it's very important that revolutions succeed in an organic way, that we may applaud them, we may want them, but they've got to deliver the end of the day. When Barack Obama was saying, we can't influence things in Egypt, we can't influence things in Egypt, what matters in the end is what the Egyptian people feel they can accept. We're no longer saying that in Libya. It's about what we'll accept.
Interesting views, Steve, as always. Thanks again.
Thank you.